My name is Jean Bernard. I'm a retired school teacher of 30 years. I've taught from kindergarten to college level and thoroughly enjoyed teaching. Education was my dream, and it finally happened. And I feel as though looking at education as it has changed over the years, there have been some major things that I have seen change. Attitudes toward education has changed considerably, I think. It's more or less treated as if it's just something that's a given, as opposed to something that we should really value for our country, for our own progress. Having taught in several other countries besides the United States, the contrast between what we feel as educators and how we're treated as educators and how we respond to education in general is so far removed from some of the countries that I've had the privilege of teaching in. In China, for example, when I was teaching there in middle school, the students were so motivated. They were so, and it came from home. They brought it with them at a very young age. Stayed very late, attended schools from Monday through Saturday, sometimes even into Sunday. And I contrasted that with how the students respond here, and it's such a casual thing. It's just so expected, just one more something that there's very little responsibility for. I would like to see parents take education much more seriously. I also think that as education is changing, there's more emphasis placed on the achievement of a particular goal as opposed to a love for learning and a love for education and for teaching the entire child, not just a subject, not just a isolated piece of that child, but the total child as a person. Education is more than just the subject areas. To me, it is being a good example and showing good ways of responding to life as it is, and to respect one another, and to appreciate and to thoroughly enjoy education as a great gift, and one that I think is taken far too lightly in our country. The student experience often reflects the home and from whence they come. And so often the parents we see in conferences for children, it's like preaching to the chorus or singing to the chorus, because they're not the ones we really need to see. Those kids they're loved, they have high expectations, their parents expect them to perform well. They'll come in and say, how can we help at home, what can we do? And it's the ones that are, and there used to be just a small number of children that had a less than good environment, and now that seems to be a much greater percentage. The home life often reflects the attitude, and does reflect the attitude of the child. And it's sometimes almost impossible to get to subject matter if the child doesn't feel as though they're put together and that sort of thing. You can have the best lessons in the world and the best background and the best resources, and if the child is hungry, or the child is tired because they're not sleeping well, or the family is in flux and not in a good condition, it's very sad, because it affects the learning of the child, which is a very sad thing. One of the saddest things I experienced as a teacher was in the 5th grade. I can remember this so clearly. There was a little boy that came in very upset that morning, and the police had come in to take his father from the home. And this was not an inner city school. This was a very well-defined upscale community. And I thought, what can I do to help this child just today, because he was so disturbed. And the little boy sitting next to me said, the first thing you have to know is it's not your fault. And I realized that these peers, these little 10-year-old kids, have experienced so much. How do you teach a math lesson or a spelling lesson or a reading lesson or any kind of a lesson when the very core of the child is being affected? So I think our society has done an awful lot of disservice to our upcoming children. I think also, and I may, this could be very controversial, but I feel very strongly about the way in which children who are, or students, even older students, who are very talented, very ready to go and able to learn, are sometimes put aside for those children who have special needs. And in so doing, little Johnny Normal is sitting there looking around at all of these children that have special needs, wondering what's wrong with him, because our standards have changed. And I think there needs to be a redefining and a stronger look at how we affect and how we approach the different children, different students with different needs, absolutely. And I think there's far too much testing for accountability's sake, for teacher accountability. You can tell immediately if a teacher's going to be a good teacher. You just walk in and just see the kids, see how they're responding, and you know. You don't need to have all of this accountability to the point that these kids are being tested. That teachable moment is lost because the time requirements and the time constraints are such they need to know X amount of data, information that can be mostly pulled from almost anywhere. And in so doing, the teachable moment and the special pieces of every single student, every single child, every single boy or girl that's in school is getting lost because they're having to comply as the teachers are having to comply to the same requirements, which I would say there needs to be less involvement of government and government grants and more involvement with community setting the standards for their school.
How about if we can talk a little bit about any changes that you see that could be made, or and do you think that just needs to be completely reinvented, or maybe just some sort of reform, or any ideas that you might have to help? You know, we were just talking about, instead of it being age by age group.
That's true. I think we're trying to compartmentalize our children in school, and I think that should be changed. I think students from the time they enter the school system, be it at 4 or 5 years old or later in life, I think it should be that, in my experience, I think the best we could do for our children would be to allow them to go at their own rate of speed and just have them pass on to the next class if they're ready, or have curriculum flexible enough so that if the child is grasping very quickly, that they not be held back either by special needs of other children or by a curriculum that says this is what you must do at this grade level. Children are individuals. We are individuals as adults. Why would we try to compartmentalize our youth, our young people? This is where they need to be exploring and finding out who they are, how well they can go, and what better avenue for self-esteem than for a child or a student to be able to pursue at their own rate and find out that they can. And those that can't, that's perfectly okay too. There's not a particular, you must do this by age 2 or 5 or 7. Why do we do that to our children? So I think that really needs to be changed. That could be changed, first of all, I think, by once again going back to the community, setting the standards within a perhaps general standards of the country, but mostly of the community in which you're living. And I think there would be more interest in the schools because the parents would be more concerned about where their children are going to school. And I know if I had, with my own girls who are now grown and have children of their own, if I had an opportunity when they were in school at any time to find a better school system for them, I was for it. There happened to be a good school system here in Scituate, and they did very well. But I think that would also, there would be more ownership, which would benefit our kids, because our kids need to go as quickly and as fast as they're capable of going in the directions they need to go. And we should be there as teachers, channeling and helping them to realize their greatest potential.